Hello and welcome back to another exciting Disney Read Aloud. I am your lovely host, Mrs. Disney, and in this reading we are going to be reading from another story from a Twisted Tale anthology. This story we are going to be reading Gonna Take You There. What if Naveen had to get home to Maldonia by Farrah Rochon. Again, if I mispronounce it, I'm deeply sorry. The changing of the call bell summoning Duke's Cafe's sole waitress to the kitchen window could barely be heard above the raucous patrons. Tiana balanced a stack of flapjacks, 2 bowls of grits, and 5 orders of pillowy, soft beignets on a serving tray. She squeezed through the narrow paths between the tables, carefully dodging pointy elbows and protruding feet. The cafe was packed to the gills with hungry, bleary-eyed customers who'd spent the night either kicking up their heels in the taverns or working the overnight shift in one of the factories in the French Quarter. "Hey, Tiana, can I get more coffee here?" one customer called. "Yeah, me too," said another. "1 minute," Tiana said. She quickly made her way to the counter and refilled the carafe with freshly brewed coffee. Several drops splashed onto her fingers, but she didn't have time to wipe off the hot liquid. She was used to such burns. "Order up," the fry cook Buford bellowed from the kitchen window. "I'll be right there," she called over her shoulder. She darted around the restaurant, refilling empty coffee mugs and picking up dirty dishes. When she returned to the kitchen, she encountered a frowning Buford, his hand propped on his generous hip. "You want to know why you never open your own restaurant?" Buford asked. "Don't start with me, okay?" Tiana warned. "It's because you're too dang slow. People want their food hot out the pot." "Slow," Tiana motioned to the crowded dining room. "Do you see this place? I can't be everywhere at once, Buford." He pointed a spatula dripping with egg yolk. "And that's why you'll always be right here, serving folks at Duke's instead of in your own restaurant. You can't handle the heat." Tiana stepped back in shock. It was bad enough Buford had given away 2 of her shifts this week, making it that much harder for her to save money for the expenses running her own restaurant would bring. But when he insulted her work ethic, she'd been on her feet for 3 hours straight that morning without a single break. She'd serve food, stack dishes, and clean the tables when customers left. She basically did every single thing in the place except the one thing she really wanted to do: cook. Why was she doing this? Cooking was her passion, yet she spent most of her time watching Buford serve up greasy food prepared without any of the care she would have employed. "Well, not anymore." "Is that so?" Tiana asked. "Darn right," Buford replied. She reached behind herself and untied the apron strings at the small of her back. "Wrong," Tiana said. "I'm done here." Buford's mouth fell open. You can't quit," he sputtered. "I just did," she countered. "I'm tired of you picking apart my dream. I'm overworked and underpaid, and I'm not putting up with it anymore." Tiana balled up the apron and tossed it on the counter. She grabbed her coat and hat and headed out the back door, ignoring Buford's calls to return. By the time she made it to the end of the alley, her entire body was shaking with a mixture of outrage, fear, and regret. Had she really quit her job? The gravity of the situation suddenly hit her. What was she thinking? How could she have made such a rash decision? She couldn't quit. She worked the night shift at Cal's, but the pay there wouldn't cover all her expenses, let alone allow her to continue saving for her dream. And it wasn't like she could afford the luxury of searching for something where she wouldn't have to work her way up to getting more lucrative shifts. How was she ever going to get her restaurant without Duke's? She spun on her heel and rushed for the door she just walked out of. But with each step she took, the nauseated feeling she got whenever Buford belittled her dream intensified. She needed this job. But should it come at the price of her dignity? If she returned to that kitchen begging for the cooks for forgiveness, she would never gain his respect. Though if she didn't, she might never earn enough money to open her own restaurant. Maybe her dignity did have a price. Just then, Tiana heard what sounded like bickering coming from the opposite end of the alley. She quietly, but quickly, walked to the edge of the building and peered around the corner. She spotted two men, one short and portly, and the other tall and, well, rather handsome, if she was being honest, arguing in the street. The shorter gentleman's cheeks were so red it looked as if he'd colored them with rouge. The taller one, who was also younger by many years, grew exceedingly animated, gesturing with his hands as he spoke. "Will you please just read the telegram for yourself, Lawrence?" the taller one asked. "According to this message, we must hasten our return." "I don't care what that telegram says," the other man turned, his nose up at the paper the tall one held out to him. "I've decided this will be a new beginning for me. I am done with your family treating me like some peasant, expecting me to change course at a moment's notice. Find yourself another valet to push around." "Can you not wait until we return to Maldonia to be done with my family?" the handsome one asked. "No," the one called Lawrence dropped two of the 3 suitcases he was holding. "Here are your bags, Prince Naveen. You are officially on your own." Prince Naveen? Tiana's friend Charlotte and her father, Mr. Eli LaBeouf, had been in the restaurant earlier, talking about some prince who was coming into town and attending their Mardi Gras ball. Lottie had hired Tiana to make beignets for the ball. Dang it! She'd planned to use the kitchen at Duke's to fry up those beignets. How was she supposed to do that when she'd quit her job? Tiana threw her head back and sighed in frustration. Yet another implication she hadn't considered. The tableau playing out before her once again grabbed her attention. Tiana watched in fascination as the shorter man stomped off with his bag, leaving the prince standing in the middle of the sidewalk. He looked as lost as an abandoned newborn puppy. A moment later, the prince's head turned her way and their eyes connected. Tiana jerked back. "Ma'am!" "Oh no." He approached her, his amber-colored eyes filled with worry. She swallowed deeply before asking, "Yes?" "My name is Prince Naveen of Maldonia." He bowed his head slightly, touching the brim of his page boy cap. "I am in need of assistance. Maybe you can help?" What kind of assistance? Surely he didn't expect her to step in as his valet. "You see, I just arrived in America today, but a message from my family back home made it here before I did. I need to get back to the port as soon as possible so I can get on the ship before it leaves for its return voyage. Can you please help me find the best route to the port? I am so bad at directions." He looked around and helplessly raised his hands. "I have no idea where I am." "What about Mardi Gras?" Tiana asked. "Aren't you supposed to go to Mr. Eli LaBeouf's ball tonight as his personal guest? That's a pretty big deal. Are you sure you want to leave?" He scrunched his forehead. "How do you know I'm supposed to attend the ball tonight? We have never met before, have we?" Tiana pointed at a discarded newspaper lying in the alley. A photo of him dressed in royal regalia and wearing a charming smile took up a large portion of the front page. "Anyone who can read the paper knows about you." Prince Naveen stooped down and lifted the paper from the street. "At least the photographer caught my good side, eh?" He shook his head. "That is not important. Neither is the ball. I will apologize to Mr. LaBeouf about missing it, but I really must get home." He looked at her with imploring eyes. "Please, help me. I have no one else to turn to." Pulling her bottom lip between her teeth, Tiana glanced over at the door to Duke's kitchen and then back at the handsome prince. The desperation in his eyes warred with her own desperation to go inside and smooth things over with Buford. She had enough problems of her own without adding the princess to her load. Besides, he was a grown man and wealthy to boot. He would figure out a way to manage. But one look at him told Tiana it wasn't that simple. Prince Naveen needed help, and if there was one thing her parents had taught her, it was the importance of helping those in need. Fine, I'll take you to the port, Tiana said. Oh, thank you, Naveen said, his voice saturated with relief and gratitude. Tiana looked at the door again. Did she have time to go in and apologize to Buford? Are we going? Naveen asked. Not to rush you, but, I really need to get there as soon as possible. I need to be on that vessel before it leaves for Maldonia. Let's go, Tiana said. She would figure out the Buford situation later. She gestured for the prince to follow her, and together they headed out of the alley, with the prince's 2 suitcases in tow. The port was less than a 10-minute walk from the cafe, but between navigating the busy city streets and being stopped by curious onlookers who recognized Naveen from his photo in the newspaper, it took them nearly twice that long. As usual, the docks were abuzz with activity. Hundreds of people crowded the pier, angling their way around huge shipping containers bound for the massive cargo ships. Merchants hawked their wares, trying their best to entice potential customers as they walked by. Wait a minute, Naveen said. He stood in the middle of the busy pier and scratched his head underneath his cap. Is this the right dock? The other one is way upriver, Tiana said. You would have had to take the streetcar or a vehicle to get downtown from there. Is that how you got there? No, Lawrence and I walked, he said. Then this is the right dock. But the passenger ship I arrived on this morning is not here. Tiana looked over at the large ships lined up along the long pier. Are you sure? I am pretty sure, he said. I was on it for quite a while. She caught the attention of a dock worker. Excuse me, sir, but do you know anything about a large passenger ship that was docked here this morning? Yep, the man nodded. It headed out about 20 minutes ago. Naveen's eyes widened in dismay as his shoulders slumped into defeat. No, he said. Do you know when it will be coming back? About a month's time, the man said. Naveen shook his head. That is too long. I cannot wait a month before I get to my family. Well, the man scratched his head. The ship is making a stop in Mobile Bay to fuel up before its head across the Atlantic. Where's Mobile Bay? Alabama, Tiana and the man said at the same time. About 150 miles east of here, the dock worker added. That's at least half a day's drive. Naveen looked at Tiana. She shook her head before he could even think about asking. No way, she said. I offered to bring you to the port, but that's as far as I could take you. I have too many things to do today. Like figuring out how she was going to make 500 beignets for the LaBeouf's Mardi Gras ball without a kitchen to cook them in. But how do I get to Mobile Bay? You're a rich prince, Tiana pointed out. You could hire a driver. But what do I do when I get there? You do what anyone would do. You buy a ticket to board the ship and you get on it. You make it sound so simple, but it isn't. Who do I see about getting a ticket once I get there? If that port is anything like this one, I will be lost. Tiana stared at him in amazement. Don't you know how to do anything for yourself? An embarrassed flush colored his face. Well, not really, actually, he admitted. I have always had servants or a valet to take care of everything, but Lawrence has abandoned me, and I do not know what to do. Tiana had never encountered someone who seemed so utterly defeated. But what could she do? She surely couldn't go gallivanting off to Mobile Bay with him. I'm sorry, Prince Naveen, but I just can't. I will pay you. Tiana's head jerked back in shock. What? Name your price. I will pay you to take me to Mobile. Her mouth dropped open in disbelief. You can't be serious. I am. Look, what is your name? See, you don't even know my name, and you want me to take you to another state. Please tell me your name. It's Tiana. Oh, that is a very pretty name, he said. He shook his head as if trying to clear it. Look, Tiana, the missive I received was not very forthcoming, but I gather from it that something is very wrong. I need to get home. I want to show my parents that they can count on me. They think I am irresponsible and selfish and, what is the word? A moocher? Are you? No, he said. Well, maybe I have been in the past, but I could change, and this is one way for me to show them that I can. Please help me. Just tell me what would be worth it for you to help me get where I need to go. Tiana thought about the money stored in coffee cans in her chifforobe. Years of tips she'd collected while waiting tables at Duke's Cafe and working the night shift at Cal's restaurant. As of now, she had enough for a down payment, but she would need more than that to buy kitchen equipment, tableware, provisions, etc. Not to mention start making rent. Tiana did a quick mental calculation of how much she needed for the first month. She blurted out the amount to Naveen. Deal, he said without hesitation. Really? She asked. Yes, I promise to get the money to you as soon as I get to Maldonia. I'm supposed to wait until you make it across the Atlantic? She crossed her arms over her chest and shook her head. No way. Okay, you are right. I would not make a deal like that either. I will have my family send the money via telegraph. I have your word that I'll get the money? Tiana asked. He slapped his palm over his heart. On my honor. Tiana looked him up and down. If she agreed to this, she would need to find someone to join them. There was no way she could go all the way to Mobile with him without a chaperone of some sort. It would be seen as improper. But who? Do you know how to drive a car? Naveen asked. Wait, do you even have a car? No, she admitted. The only car I've ever ridden it in belongs to Mr. LaBeouf. Tiana slapped her hand to her forehead. Of course, she said. Of course. She would get the LaBeouf's driver, John, to take them. She'd known him since she was a little girl and trusted him completely. Not only could John drive, but he would serve as their chaperone as well. The LaBeoufs were preparing for the ball. They weren't worried about going anywhere, and she should be back in plenty of time to make the beignets for tonight. Tiana smiled at Naveen, thinking about how much closer this would bring her to getting her restaurant. You are in luck, she said, because I know exactly how to get you to Mobile.